Hello again and welcome to another vlog on my 2019 trip series. Yes, and today we're returning ourselves back to Turkmenistan for the second part of my time there, and here we go. After the Disfigure crater in the previous vlog, we were on our way to the glittering capital of Turkmenistan, Ashgabat, which is covered in marble, the most marble of any city in the world, or so they say. It was a fair drive, about 3 hours from Disfigure crater. No sooner had we taken off in the four-wheel drive, my guide, her name was Igel, started to have severe abdomen pain, and she was worried that it was her appendix. I'm not sure why she thought that, but it turned out she was bang on the money. We're only into the second day, and we hit Ashgabat. We went to the tour office, and I got a new guide because she had to be rushed to hospital, and she had her appendix out. So that was a little surreal to say the least, and I had a new guide, an older gentleman. His name was Mr. Jabbar, and he was lovely too. Both guides were absolutely fantastic. So the thing we did though before we actually entered Ashgabat, we had to get the van, the full drive washed. There was a big sort of rest stop with lots of spots for people to have their cars, vans, full drives, whatever, washed, because in Ashgabat you must have a clean car. There's sort of a theme, you know, it's the white city, it's white marble, and cars are generally silver or white. And so obviously dirt's going to show up pretty easily, and you can apparently get fined for having a dirty car, driving a dirty car around Ashgabat. So that kind of adds to the mystique of the city in a very strange and unique way, I guess. After that, it was to this capital of Ashgabat, where I'm sure you'll see through photos and more video here some of the most amazing buildings that you're likely to see. It's a city designed on a grand scale. It was flattened in 1948 by an earthquake, but modern day Ashgabat mostly hails from since independence in 1991. And yeah, so it's quite eye-opening. It's got lots of boulevards, lots of parks. I'm told that the population is somewhere between 700,000 and 1 million, depending on who I've asked. I was quickly checked into my hotel, the Hilton, 3-star hotel, and then I was straight back into the thick of it, touring around Ashgabat, seeing what the city had for tourists. My guide, Mr. Jabbar, told me that at some point many years ago, the first president of Turkmenistan after independence, that's Mr. Turkmenbashi, he actually began a program to plant a tree for every person who lived in Turkmenistan. Now the population of Turkmenistan is around 6 million, but apparently I think he said they were up to 20 million trees or something, and that had actually altered the climate in Ashgabat, and now they got a bit more rain each year, which, I mean, Ashgabat is a very, very dry capital city, so that's probably a very good thing, I suppose. The first place we stopped was this massive Independence Park, and you know, there was a huge building that was rarely used, I was told, and around that there were these massive Soviet almost style statues of poets and the like. Another thing to see on a tour of Ashgabat is the Memorial Park, which is this park dedicated to the memory of those that died in the Second World War, which in Turkmenistan, as it was in the Soviet Union, is known as the Great Patriotic War. And also it's dedicated to those who died in the 1948 Ashgabat earthquake. In 1948, Ashgabat had a massive earthquake, 9.1 or something on the Richter scale, and 90% of the people who lived in Ashgabat died. And that's why so much of Ashgabat today is modern. Good old Turkmenbashi, he doesn't just stop at statues and portraits. He actually, not only does he have a mausoleum, which is fairly standard for your leaders of these kind of countries, I guess, which you can visit. That stands right next to the Turkmenbashi Mosque. Yes, the largest mosque in the country is named after their inaugural president. And it is one of the most amazing mosques, one of the most amazing places of worship you will see on this planet. One place that I had seen on the itinerary before I went to Turkmenistan that looked really interesting was the Kau Atta underground lake, which you know, we drove out somewhere outside Ashgabat, not that far, and there was this entrance in rocks, and you went down these stairs and you went down some more stairs, and you kept going quite deep until you got to this lake, which smelt a bit of sulphur. I was hopeful of a nice swim in a warm lake. I declined in the end to hop in because, first of all, the whole place was absolutely infested with bats and pigeons and the things that they leave around. One thing in particular, obviously. So I gave that a bit of a miss, and it did smell a bit, and it just wasn't clean. But you know, it was interesting enough to see. But it was probably the major disappointment of the whole trip to Turkmenistan, because it just was not pleasant. One of the more interesting things that I did see in Turkmenistan, and again, this isn't in Ashgabat, but it's somewhere outside Ashgabat, was the small town of Nohor. Now, this is sort of like, it's a little closed community that lives out in this town, and they believe that they are all descended from Alexander the Great, who at some point passed through Central Asia many centuries plus ago. They believe that they're special, I guess, and so they're quite a closed community. They generally do not marry outside the community. The main thing that I was shown when I was there was the cemetery, this large graveyard, and all the different tombs or the different graves, the little plaques, they had ram's horns on them. And apparently this is because Alexander the Great had like a helmet or something with 2 ram's horns on it. One thing that I did notice in that cemetery was that there were a lot of people not living very long, and I suppose that that's what happens when you're not allowed to have children with people outside a small community. Ashgabat is not far from an ancient city called Nissa, which was in power in the Parthian Empire from around 247 BC to 224 AD. Apparently they defeated the Romans at one point, and the empire existed between the Indus River in India/Pakistan all the way across to eastern Turkey, and here in southern Turkmenistan, not far from the capital Ashgabat, Nissa is where it was ruled from. Turkmenistan actually has a long and proud history, and it dates back to well before Christ. Have a look, and there's not a lot to see at Nissa, but you do see archaeologists at work there, and there are other 2 groups going through there. So people are hearing about it, learning about it, and hopefully if we have after coronavirus is all done with, if we get a few more people going to Turkmenistan, then these places will become more popular and there'll be more money put in. And things will be restored and found. Eventually, I moved on from the capital Ashgabat, and I headed across to Merw and Merw, which were to the east of the city, east and slightly north. And I think it was a good half-day journey to get there. And so we had a couple of quick stops, and the most memorable one was at the Said Jamaluddin Mausoleum, which was it was a mosque or a mausoleum that is mostly destroyed now. It was destroyed by the 1948 earthquake, and it hasn't been rebuilt, but it's still considered quite a holy site because there's like almost a community centre there. And when I was there, it was some important day, and everybody was gathered and they were cooking or preparing food. So it was really interesting, and I was actually able to get a few photos of people, which had been a little bit tricky up until this point travelling in Turkmenistan. So that was really interesting. And then of course we moved on down the road to on the road to Merw and Merw. Mr. Jabbar my guide was very excited when there was I guess it's like a fruit and veggie stall on the side of the road, and there were pumpkins and melons were the feature of this place. There wasn't much else, but again, melons are the pride of Turkmenistan. So he was very excited, and he bought some melons, I think, and pumpkins on the way home. But he wanted to show me that, so that was interesting. And eventually we arrived in the historic city of Merw, which was actually it was capital and the main city in these parts between the 6th and 13th century. Merw itself, there was like Merw 1, Merw 2, Merw 3, all in and around the same site, but they were sort of different cities at different times. And you know, there were some really interesting buildings there, and they were filming this in the main sort of mausoleum, the first place you stop. They were filming some sort of drama, which was really interesting to watch them do. I didn't get a big look at the city of Merw. I've heard that there isn't that much there, but you know, it looked like it could have been an interesting place. I stayed at the Merw Hotel, which was an incredibly thoughtful name for a hotel in the city of Merw. I visited the market there, which was interesting. That was the one place where I was actually told to delete photos off my phone, and it was interesting because it was just like a wide shot of the market, and I'm not sure why the official there thought that I should delete that photo, but delete it I did. I did get some photos of some people who worked in the market though, which was nice. And soon we were on our way back to the nation's capital of Ashgabat. We had one more stop before we got back there though, and that was at the Akal Teki horse stables. The Akal Teki is this very revered species of horse, which I think is native to Turkmenistan. I believe that the current president has a number of them. And so we visited these stables, and they brought out a whole number of horses and they sort of ran around and almost did tricks, I guess. And I was in a tour group of one, and then there was my guide. And so basically they brought out about 4 or 5 horses for me to watch. So there was one spectator to 5 horses. So that was really interesting, and you can see that footage as well. And then it was back to Ashgabat.
Look at the color. It's not monocolor. Look at it from the back, slowly changing color to the shoulder, to the belly, to the buttock. Look at that. To easily camouflage in desert. cut the mane because of the heat. Only those horses that they train to be.
And then it was back to Ashgabat, and it was, you know, getting late in the afternoon, but we had a late lunch, and we went to the Bukhara shopping mall, which is really quite the snazzy shopping mall. And there was a big food court, and there wasn't, in true Ashgabat fashion, there really wasn't a lot of people there, but it was interesting. Went to a supermarket as well. And I would have liked to spend a bit more time exploring and taking more photos, actually, because it was like one of the really exclusive malls in Dubai, but without the people. I mean, there were people, but you know, it wasn't a lot, and it was really interesting. And sometimes I find that these kind of places, you learn more about a country in a shopping mall than you do at an ancient historical site, where you just see, you know, oh, this used to be a bathhouse, and this used to be the palace or whatever, but you can barely make out what it is. But you know, you go to a shopping mall, you learn a bit more about the soul and what a country is really like. And that was pretty much my time in Turkmenistan done. The airport itself, in keeping with the rest of the city, is white and shiny and huge, and the check-in was ridiculously fast. In fact, I arrived at about 12:55, and I was at the gate by about 1:15. It was that quick, if not 1:10. And there was a cafe open there, because I had 3 hours to kill, as it were, so I could work on my diary and stuff and just marvel. And I really should have taken some footage and a few more photos while I was there, and I'm regretting it right now as I'm talking to you, but that's the way it goes, I guess. Turkmenistan, it was a curious country. It was stunning in many aspects. It was interesting. It was surreal, and a little weird. It was rewarding. The guides were fantastic. The first driver was good. We had a second driver, and he was a little fast. It's fair to say I didn't necessarily feel 100% safe when he was going down Turkmenistan highways at 160k an hour, because they ain't no Autobahn, let's be honest here. But you know, it wasn't too bad, and I'm very glad that I've been to Turkmenistan. And you know, I'd be interested in seeing some of the west of the country too, because I didn't get along to that part of the country. Maybe one day, many years later, because I've got so many more countries to see. But I'm very glad to say that now I've ticked off all the stands, all the stand. Well, I haven't been to Afghanistan, but all the stands that were part of the Soviet Union. So that's what people tend to mean when they talk about the stands. So from there, I got onto a plane via Istanbul to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem in Israel. So quite a contrast was I about to embrace. So that obviously is going to be another vlog altogether, and that'll be out hopefully about 2 weeks after this one is. So I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world, looking after yourself. Thank you for joining in. Please do subscribe. It'll make me ever so happy. And likes are always also good for the soul. Don't forget that you can read lots of content. I might put some Turkmenistan blog posts down in the description if you're interested in learning a bit more about Turkmenistan. Don't forget that, you know, this is the 6th vlog in this series, so there's 5 others if you haven't caught on to any of those, and you might be interested in Tajikistan or Uzbekistan. You know, please do check them out. Thank you very much for joining me, and as I like to say, as I like to end all my videos, may the journey never end.